Edmonton, speak. Shelter, speak.
Bill, can you hear us? We're supposed to.
Hey, Leo. That's what I got, okay?
Doesn't that seem really weird to you?
So they can hear us.
That is not my responsibility, and I don't know.
Morning, everybody. Okay, so can Edmonton hear us? Is that a yes or no?
Yes, we can hear you.
Edmonton can hear us. Can the shelter hear us? Okay, we got a shelter problem. That's fine. Okay, here we go. So we have a whole great big list of announcements this morning, so we're going to go through this, and hopefully by then we got the shelter back. So the first one is our buddy David's going to get up and talk about rewrite your story. 2 minutes, 29 seconds.
He said I only get 2 minutes, and I kept bartering for 2.5, so 2:29 works. So did everyone get one of these this morning? Or have it on their desk, or see it on their desktop? If everything worked the way it was supposed to, everyone should have received these. Okay. Well, we expected that not everyone would have one, so we have extras. Please, all staff, take one of these on your way out. If you remember, last Christmas, we talked pretty heavily about rewrite your story. Does anyone remember that? Thank you. I'm glad at least someone was paying attention. Just kidding. I know everyone was, but it's been a while. We really had planned on this being a big initiative, and basically we want this place to really, truly inspire hope. We want everyone who walks through these doors to see banners and posters and stories and be reminded of how God can rewrite their story, okay? So we can do this. All of us as staff members can talk to residents, guests, clients, anybody we come across, and ask them how God is helping them change their story. Aren't you all glad that your past doesn't have to define your future? Yes, because we've all had things happen in our past that we don't like. And what I love in 2 Corinthians 5, verse 17 to 18 is what Paul says here. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here. Exclamation mark. That's important. All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. Now, I'm going to push that part a little bit because it's awesome that Christ has done a new thing in us, and we can definitely celebrate that. But what Paul was saying is that we need to do something with that. The ministry of reconciliation is where we go into the crowds and we talk to people and we encourage them about reconciliation. And we tell them how God can help them rewrite their story. Our past does not have to define our future, and this is how hope will grow here. If we all take this seriously, we talk to people, and we encourage them to share their stories. So on the back at the bottom, there's a website. It's our website. It's just a link to a direct spot where you can get the form so that you can fill out these stories. Or what I really like the most about this is that residents can go there directly, or anyone, and fill out the form themselves. It would be edited. Obviously, we would look at it and make sure there's nothing on there that shouldn't be there. But they can do it themselves. So please encourage the guests and clients and residents that you work with to share their stories. And we're going to really push this hard. So I expect you guys to really take it seriously and come talk to me more about it if you have questions, okay? We can all do this? All right. God bless you guys. That's it.
That's 2 minutes and 35 seconds, just so you know. Coverage at the shelter next week. Brandon, I can't see you. You're behind me. You're good, right? Excellent. Am I one of them? Me too. Anyway, I heard that. Volunteer event. It would, if you would like to volunteer for the Calgary Corporate Challenge this month, for the gala in October, please see Kaylee or Donna. Is Kaylee here? Is Kaylee? And Donna would be here. Not. Okay. I'm going to get, next week's speaker is going to be Jonathan Nikolai DeConning. He's the integration chaplain in Edmonton. And I'm going to get Dean to introduce Jeremiah.
Good morning, everybody. Jeremiah has been on staff for 5 years. He's our community engagement coordinator for the last 3.5. He's also the associate pastor at Mosaic House here in Edmonton, and he has way better hair than me. Please welcome Jeremiah.
Thanks, Dean. I am happy to be here today, and By the way, you do have nice hair today, Pete. So it's okay. I always thought it's good at least once a year to tell the creation story of the Mustard Seed, how we started. I thought there's new staff here. It's a new season. It's fall time. I thought it'd be good just to reflect on the creation story of the Mustard Seed Edmonton. I love the story of the Mustard Seed in Calgary. It's beautiful, and Red Deer too. But for the sake of time, I'll stick to one story. Okay, you can tell yours a little later. But first off, let's start off with the verse, one of the verses of the Mustard Seed, which I really love. It's Matthew 13, starting verse 31. It says, "The kingdom of heaven, what we want in life, time when God is ruling with power and justice and might, is like a mustard seed. Even though it's the smallest of all seeds, when it's planted, it grows to be one of the largest garden plants, where birds come and perch in its branches." Now, we take a lot of kids around the Mustard Seed. When I tell that story, I always emphasize small things make a big difference. And the kids are like, yeah, we can do anything. We can give 10 pairs of underwear. We can do it all. They love that story, and that's very, very true. Our small acts of love, our generosity of kindness to each other, to the community we serve, or even our community teaching me little stuff, God will use huge in His kingdom in ways we can't expect. At the same time, many of the Jewish people, when they heard Jesus tell that story, many were, not all, but most of them were connected to the land. And the rich farmers, when they heard that story, they were shocked. They were offended. They were like, Jesus, what? The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed? Because in those days, the mustard seed was a weed. It was a mustard weed. And it was actually illegal, or against the Jewish law, for you to plant a mustard seed in your field. And Jesus said, a man planted in his field, they'd be like, this guy, he's going to get caught. What is he doing? Because it will overtake your field like Canadian thistle, like anything. And to give you some context, it'd be like if Jesus came today and said, the kingdom of heaven is like a dandelion. Even if it's a small little plant, it spreads a plague across Edmonton. Or the kingdom of heaven is like a gopher. Even a small little rodent, it will overtake your fields, come inside, break horses' feet. Or, I'm not sure in Calgary, but the kingdom of heaven is like a pothole. It's a small little hole. It is powerful enough to spread across the city and stop the biggest of trucks. Jesus' kingdom is like what? And when they heard it, they were like, what are you talking about, Jesus? And in order to kind of understand this story, let's talk about the Mustard Seed in Edmonton. The Mustard Seed in Edmonton started in the old church building in 96th Street. It started as a German Baptist church in 1912. And then something happened in North America to create what we know as the inner city, or the ghetto, or the hood. And inner cities are actually Western phenomenon. In other countries, in other big cities, most marginalized spaces are kind of on the fringes of the city, on the outskirts, slums, or that part of town. But to have a marginalized space right in the core of a city, very, very unique to Western society. And this all started with the flight to the suburbs, also known as the white flight to the suburbs. And most people think that inner cities were created when, bad people came together like, oh, we can't do bad stuff in the good part of town. Let's make our own bad part of town. So they kicked all the nice white people out, and they created their own bad part of town. Yeah. That's not what happened. The total opposite happened. Ghetto, as we know, we think of drugs, gangs, violence, yada, yada, yada. Ghetto is an Italian word. It literally means a Jewish community. Very racist term suggesting people like the Jews are filled with gangs, of drugs, of rap music, of bad stuff. And they should be squeezed into their own segregated community so they don't infect the rest of society. And that's what inner cities are created to be. Cages to house in those people considered diseased, defiled, or dangerous. And this was made possible with what's known as the flight to the suburbs, in which there's new suburbs in town and new outskirts of the city, and certain powers that be wanted to populate these new suburbs with good, respectable, noble people. And who did they choose? People like themselves. In America, it's even more intense where white families were given money to move to the suburbs. So African American families weren't given that same privilege, as well as this made possible the rise of the car, so you can drive from the suburbs downtown to work. Highways in some cities are designed to keep white and other minority communities separated. And what happened was, as people were fleeing from the downtown, certain people were squeezed into this cage. In almost every single interstate in North America, there's a Chinatown in Little Italy. 96th Street is where the Masjid is. 97th Street in Edmonton is, if you don't know, Chinatown. 95th Street in Edmonton is Little Italy. Certain people considered diseased and fallen dangerous were squeezed into this cage. In 1900s, one example is in Calgary, no offense to Calgary, it happened here too, there was a smallpox outbreak, and the smallpox outbreak, very, very scary and dangerous, and the Calgary Herald, right on the front page, smallpox outbreak. There are too many Chinese in the city. There's not 1 ounce of evidence to suggest there was any relation to the two, but they were seen as diseased rats. If you let them run rampant, they will infect our safe home. In World War II, there was something called the Enemy Alien Estates Act, in which every Italian person who was already a non-white immigrant, comes to Canada anyway, were deemed as enemy aliens. And every week they had to go to the cop shop and they were asked, did you kill anybody at any time? No, sir. Did you do any terrorism at any time? No, sir. Did you hide Hitler today, Italian? No, sir. And they too are seen as a threat to society and squeezed into this cage. With other Southeast Asian populations, other Eastern European populations, and especially the indigenous population. In the 1940s, it was illegal for 10 Aboriginal people to meet together. It was seen as treason or sedition. And they too, out of fear, desperation, were squeezed into this cage. And this good old Baptist church on 96th Street saw all these people coming in. Oh no, there's Chinese people, there's Italian people. What do we, they were Germans, but they changed the name from German Baptist to Sedell Baptist because they didn't want to associate with the German roots. They were good people. They were the good immigrants. And as their congregation was moving to the suburbs, and all these people were coming in, they became afraid. And they left with the flight to become a church across the river in the safety of the suburbs. And as you guys know, the church became Danny Hooper's Bar and Saloon, one of the craziest nightclubs in town. And the whole neighborhood changed. As resources were taken from it, people were squeezed in and it became a prison, literally. 10 years later, in this new, safe suburban church where the congregation moved, there was once a wild, rebellious youth group. They wouldn't listen to the pastors. They wouldn't read the Bible. They were just wild. They didn't know what to do. They were just crazy. I'm not sure what's going on. So the youth pastor was like, I got nothing. I can't do anything else. So he decided to go on a field trip, on a walk, from their new building in the suburbs back to the old building where they first started the church. And they walked that long distance across the river, and they came up to the old church building. And by that time, Danny Hooper's had closed down, and it was empty. And the door was actually open, and they walked in, and they remembered their time, their life in the little church. One of the youth kids said, "Oh, remember that time I pushed you over the balcony? Remember the time I kissed your sister? You kissed my sister? What?" They had a good time just remembering who they were. And then as they were walking back, they saw the neighborhood completely changed. People were struggling in poverty, in homelessness, in addiction. And the kingdom of heaven started to grow in their hearts. The next day, one of the kids had an idea, and they got their truck, and the next Saturday, they drove their truck from their nice church back into 96th Street in their old church, and they picked up people who were homeless. Drove them back to the new church and let them stay in the basement Saturday night without telling their church about it. Sunday morning rolled around, and people from the street were waking up, to the nice suburbanites. There was some tension. There was a little bit of tension. And the youth were like, we're going to do it anyway. We don't care what people think. And for a few months, they kept doing it. And they became a nuisance. They became a weed to the church culture. Like, what are you doing? What are you? We try to get away from these people. What's going on? Now the kingdom of heaven grew. And the leadership at the time saw that God was working in this youth, this wild youth group, that God was doing something great. So they, with another Baptist church, aimed to buy their old building back. And they succeeded. And the cool story is they actually bought their old building, now the Mustard Seed, for the same amount they sold it for 10 years prior, with a brand new kitchen, courtesy of Danny Hooper's Barnsley. And that's how the meal program started. And they created the Mustard Seed in 1988, a refuge and a home for those living in poverty and homeless. Those the world considers diseased, defiled, or dangerous. And that story encapsulates Jesus' parable in two ways. One, again, small things make a big difference. This little youth group just got a truck, doing something rebellious against the norm, and they started something, which eventually started the ministry, which is lasting today by God's grace. And secondly, they were weeds. They were a nuisance. They were totally against the religious culture at the time, radically different, loving their neighbor whom the church thought couldn't be loved. And that's what Jesus was trying to tell the people. The kingdom of heaven is not what you expect. The kingdom of heaven is not in the tall towers or even on the preacher pulpit sometimes. The kingdom of heaven is where Jesus is, with the vulnerable, with the birds of the air, with the vile people of society. And we as Christians are called also to be weeds of society. To live in it, but also to be scattered abroad like annoying Canadian thistle, like stinging nettle, so that we as a church community can be what in Bonhoeffer calls the conscience of the city, so that we can say, let's slow down our progress, let's slow down our economic prosperity, because look at all the people we are leaving behind. Look at all the people that we are damning to a cage. And for me, this story gives me hope that the kingdom of heaven is still at work here. The kingdom of heaven is in the darkest places of the inner city and the darkest places of our life. And God is working aggressively to proclaim his kingdom, when he will always reign forever. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for bringing us here. Thank you for this organization you've called in Calgary, in Red Deer, and in Edmonton. Thank you for creating us, for giving us your kingdom, starting in the youth group, now in us, and also in our community. Help us to live in your kingdom and to see it how you want to see it, not in maybe what our culture says, or not in maybe in sometimes what the church culture says, but in you. May your Holy Spirit guide us and use us so that we may be those annoying pests, those weeds in society, so that others may know who you are, and so that those who are hurting, our neighbors who are needing you, might find rest and peace in their souls and their needs provided. Give us strength in our work in your kingdom, so that even if we are plucked out, we know that we have new life in you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I don't think anybody else. Not good again.